Good morning. This is the Bitcoin Morning Brief. I am Leah, and we have the full cast of characters today. Tone, Jimmy, and Giacomo. We decided to all wear hats today. Yeah, that's pretty much that to it. So, Tone, are you still in San Francisco? Great lecture last night at Plug and Play.
I am. Thanks. Yeah, that was a pretty good lecture. I'm actually indoors right now, which it's kind of rainy and cold out, so it's going to be a little loud by me. But yeah, Plug and Play was a lot of fun. Never been there before. So check out that YouTube video from last night.
Cool. Giacomo, you have a different hat on today. What's that say?
Yeah, this is Proof of Brain by Hodl People, one of the best conference at the Baltic Honey Badger. And I have a bunch of other hats, but I will use them in different episodes. So I feel shame to be the only one without.
Perfect. And how's it going, Jimmy?
Well, you know, I'm the one that did the hat thing, but now you guys are all doing it. So I'm feeling a little bit copied here, but that's okay.
It's just flattery is the, perfect form. We're just imitating.
Are you for proprietary software license? I mean, this is open source.
Yeah, I no MIT license for, hat wearing. Sorry. It's going to be much more restrictive. GNU Gruffalo or whatever, the one that's restrictive. I can't remember all these licenses, man. That's always hard.
Well, good thing we don't have the cowboy hat. We'll see just how far you get, or maybe a patent here, given our next story. So just clarifying from yesterday's story. So Bitmain actually does accept USD, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. So Jimmy, we're going to roll into this next story. It sounds like what you're saying yesterday is already coming true.
Yeah. So, first of all, Bitmain, I used to take only Bitcoin Cash. I don't know exactly when they changed it over, but the fact that they felt like they had to change over tells you that competition's there, right? Like, if they were making it, if they had the pricing power just to force people to use Bitcoin Cash, then that's what they would have done. But that's not the case anymore because of some, competitors like Halong Mining. What's interesting about Halong Mining is that they fabbed it at Samsung. Every other miner that I've heard of before Halong pretty much used TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, and for good reason. Taiwan Semiconductor has an excellent reputation. They get like higher yields than everybody else, and they're really good at this stuff. Samsung they have chip fabs. They're not necessarily as good, but the fact that they did it on a 10 nanometer process tells you a lot. If you don't know much about chip manufacturing, the smaller the process is, Bitmain uses like the 16 nanometer, and like the first generation of ASICs use like 128 nanometer. The more you can sort of fit into a piece of silicon, and you can do a lot more things, and it's more efficient and things like that. Except it's actually pretty hard to control like at such small scales. But the fact that Halong managed to use Samsung and get 10 nanometer, they also added overt ASIC boost with version rolling and things like that. These are all innovations that Bitmain does not have. So competition is already here. What I talked about in my article yesterday was, competition is coming. It's already here, and if they can scale this up, what that guy is holding up is a chip wafer, and you print chips on that, or you fabricate chips on that thing, and you can do a lot more with 10. You can fabricate more chips on one of those wafers using like a 10 nanometer versus like something like 16. That said, TSMC is rumored to be, not rumored to be, I know for a fact that they are moving towards 7 nanometer, and Bitmain for sure has something up their sleeve with the next generation that's going to get even better. So it's going to be competition all around, and the fact that Samsung's gotten into the game is very good news. And like I said yesterday, this is pushing the art of semiconductor manufacturing. This is very much, pushing this Bitcoin itself and all of this mining stuff. It's pushing the art way past what computer CPU chip manufacturing was able to do. So it's very good news in like sort of a world sense, because we are sort of getting better technology available for everybody. But it's also good news for Bitcoiners because, diversification is going to happen. Competition is happening. And, we'll have better and newer things coming along as we evolve in this space.
Thanks, Jimmy. And Giacomo, because we didn't have you yesterday, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So we discussed Jimmy's article at length, very specifically also about mining centralization, how innovations and issues will affect this entire ecosystem. Now we have this story coming out. To Jimmy's point, as I said, is pretty much, he called it. Do you want to just make one last thought on this now Dragon flying shipping and Dragon Mint's latest rollout?
No, I think that what Jimmy said is very complete. It's a good news. There is competition. Actually, one thought we could consider related with this topic is the discussion going on, not very widespread, actually, about the proof of work changing in Bitcoin. After the events of the last year, there was some developers, namely Luke and a few others, were proposing to getting back the discussion about the proof of work change that was already conceived as a possibility a few years ago. But this specific situation right now, actually, I think it makes clear that we shouldn't do anything like that or even think about anything like that, because we are seeing competition, not just competition into the space of Bitcoin specific industry like Hailong, BS, Bitmain, but even at the level of their underlying providers of chip, which is very, very good, because we have different mining ASICs provider, but they are all served by the same underlying provider at the chip level. Then the centralization is just moved on another plan, which is still very dangerous. So it's actually very, very good news. I hope that the situation progresses like this, and this could help to an acceleration of the evolution of the new generation that maybe around 7 nanometer will finally bring the famous phase of the commodification of ASICs, which is a phase in which your hardware doesn't get old very, very fast. And so you can start thinking about using your hardware to heat up your home in a cold country or stuff like that. That is not really feasible right now because the turnover is too quick.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think maybe this discussion is beyond Tone's IQ level. So let's not throw him under the bus or potentially get him electrocuted again this time, given your mining. Just kidding.
That's actually a very good idea. I'll leave the guys. Oh my God, we have like 2,400 viewers. Amazing. That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, this one is your favorite topic, Ethereum. So
yeah.
We'll definitely put you on the spot.
Hey, one second, Leah, because Jimmy might not have watched that video. Jimmy, so I actually attempted to upgrade my miner while live on camera. I was replacing my Avalon 741 with my 781. 821. So I was replacing my 741 Canon with an 821 Canon, and like the entire live chat went nuts when I was actually I didn't actually turn off. I was so busy, I didn't actually turn off the miner as I was reconnecting it to a power supply, and the whole internet thought I was about to die on live air.
So, and one last note on this. Yes, so the mining hat that I'm wearing is because this is about the extent of how much I understand about mining. So I go on the lowest scale here of understanding it. No, but it was a great video, Jimmy. Thanks, Tone. So moving in, Golem arrives. One of Ethereum's most ambitious apps is finally live. So Golem is a peer-to-peer market for putting your computer's excess CPU power to use for other people. They describe themselves as the Airbnb for computers. I don't really understand how this is an accurate business analogy, but they've announced that they're launching their beta, which is called Golem Brass Beta. So a golem is really a mindless monster that is brought to life by magic, or for all of our Lord of the Ring fans, we know how beautiful he was, right? So they've been working on this for 3 years, And people have been really pissed off that it's taken so long. So this statement I see is a mea culpa of why it's taken so long. The CEO made an explicit apology and still isn't finished, but they're coming out with this beta so people can play with it, right? I found the facts specifically that they've raised $340 million back in 2016, which is definitely no small amount, and another 8.6 mil this past December, at least as was listed on Crunchbase, still via their ICO. And it is still taking this long to even roll out a beta, which I think shows just how many issues there are in the Ethereum platform, especially given, right, an agile methodology. It's just releasing the MVP to the public to gather user feedback and then hopefully iterate accordingly. So Tone, I'll go straight to you. $350 million and some change for something that they apparently don't even know how to do?
Yeah, so that in and of itself is like insane. And they don't know what they're doing. Like, if you read this article, like, it shows it to you right there. We're gonna go through some other parts of it, but I mean, the amount of money that they raised is just nuts. There's definitely gonna be a class action lawsuit. I'm surprised, like, somebody like David Silver isn't all over it. But I want to focus on the article above. You see where it says putting your computer's access CPU power to use? I mean, I'm not very technically inclined, but my very basic understanding of computers, there's no such thing as access CPU power. Jimmy, would you like to correct me that your computer has just access CPU power that's just dying to be used for something?
Well, so it's basically your CPU can run pretty fast, and if it's not running as fast as it can, there's sort of like an excess that you can utilize. So something like SETI at home or something like that. It's donating CPU power to analyze signals from outer space to see if there are real alien civilizations or something like that. That's I think what it was talking about, and it's protein folding, other things that require just a lot of CPU power. That's I think what this project was trying to utilize.
Right, and the thing is, you're basically just you're volunteering it for something that's A, in the case of Bitcoin, you were making money on, or B, you're doing it, for something like cool that you like. But in this case, they're basically, it looks like they're taking open source software called Blender for some kind of 3D animation, and it doesn't explain anywhere what they're actually doing with it. I mean, we're gonna get through some of this article, but it's just like I don't know how much you guys know about it. Like, I remember when this thing launched, and I remember it being in the top 10 by market cap across all assets. I mean, now at least it's down to number 55. But it's anyway, like general thoughts, and then we can get into the slight details on it. Or I'll give it back to Leah. She'll delegate.
All right, Tone, and I do have the market cap up, so we can go back to that. Jimmy, I wanted to ask you a question here. So it says specifically, speaking to the project's long road to production, the CEO and founder told CoinDesk, interfacing with Ethereum seems pretty straightforward, but once you want to move into production, it's extremely difficult. So what's your observation? What's going on here?
Well, I mean, he's right in the sense that it's going to take a very long time to create any sort of real blockchain product. I'm not sure what they're really doing, though. Like CPU power just isn't that valuable. We know this. I mean, if it were, then you'd be buying computers so you can have lots of extra CPU power that other people can rent and things like that. People have been trying to figure out ways to use excess CPU power for a long time. Nobody's really found a good way to do it except like mining Monero or something like that. So this is kind of a ridiculous project on its surface. But the development timeline, I think, is actually legit. You do need to take like a year and a half, 2 years in order to actually come up with something. I don't know if they spent it on actually securing their thing, or if they were just, they had so much money that they were just sort of, squandering it or whatever. I will note that they raised 820,000 Ethereum, which today is worth about $340 million. And if you go back to the market cap thing, Leah, you will see that their current market cap is 233 million, which means if you kept the Ethereum instead of investing in Golem, you would be doing about 30% better. And that tells you just sort of how these ICOs are kind of, I mean, this is against Ethereum. So, and, you know, granted, Ethereum's gone up in price as well. But the fact that, you know, it's sort of gone down relative to it tells you that, you know, they more or less, you know, bled value during the last couple of years. Yeah, I did take a look at their open source repo a little bit. They have something like 8 or 10 dependencies, including like Docker, OpenSSL. They have some interesting script to install all this stuff. You need like Geth and you know, I'm guessing Geth like goes into a Docker container and they communicate over that. It's probably a very fragile system, just a guess, just the number of dependencies and how many things you have to get running in order to get their thing up. And, you know, first versions of products are often like this, which is fine. But I will say, though, that this is a blockchain project. And the thing about a blockchain project is that if you have something, you have to continuously be backwards compatible. And if there's any bugs in this thing, oh, good luck. This is going to be not fun for any of their developers.
Right. And to your point, you know, it's fun to say we will have to see how it behaves in the wild. So it'll definitely get wild. And apparently that is where their 350 million plus is going. So we'll see. But Giacomo, in Tone's, I'm going to combine you guys. In Tone's plug and play talk yesterday, he spoke about the importance of blockchain needing to be simplified and decentralized rather than complex and centralized, which we have spoken about at length. Now, this seems to me an example of a very complex and centralized way of doing things.
Yeah, this is probably the worst use case for a blockchain you could imagine. Basically, this is very, very, let's say, unlikely to succeed, or probably I could say scammy, on at least 5 levels. The first level is the fundamental level of the use case itself. Is it realistic and likely that people will actually rent out their unused CPU power that is not unused? I mean, if you don't need it, you don't use it, you don't spend electricity, you don't heat up your machine. So there is not such a thing like unused CPU power, which is there and you have to put it at some use. So assume that then you do, but probably you don't. I mean, situation like the ones which Jimmy explained are very, very rare. Usually in computer power, we have normal users renting computing powers from a centralized company like Amazon AWS, Google Cloud, not the other way around. But let's assume that we find the use case for the other way around, which is itself very, very complex to manage. Then the second question is, why do we want a decentralized protocol to do that? I mean, all the examples that Jimmy gave, like the protein folding, the SETI, alien communication, the anti-ADS computation, everything like that is actually done very well by a centralized company. And I mean, even the example they are using, like the Airbnb of computation. Airbnb is a company with their infrastructure, their policy is not a decentralized protocol, because this kind of exchange is too complex to be done on a decentralized protocol, at least right now and probably for the next decades. But even if you manage to do a decentralized protocol and not a centralized company to rent and distribute computing power, why the hell do you need something blockchainish or tokenized about it? I mean, BitTorrent is a decentralized protocol. We use BitTorrent to exchange files, and in order to avoid free riding, sometimes I can access to file downloading only if I'm also providing file uploading. So we can put some kind of incentive mechanism in which I will give you computing power only if you gave somebody else computing power, BitTorrent style. There is no need to create a new currency, a new token. But even if you need to put monetization on top of that, you could do something like, zero net, where you take an existing standard like BitTorrent, and you just put Bitcoin payments on top of that. Like now with Lightning, would be even nice to experiment with the micropayments in order to use to incentivize internet mesh networks or decentralized file storage or decentralized computation. There is no need to create a new infrastructure. And finally, fifth point, even if you do need to create a new infrastructure in order to exchange computing power in this decentralized way, the way they did it on top of Ethereum, which is already a very, very too complex with unsecure, unscalable, unprivate, this replicated computation layer, and you put something on top of that with your token, which is, by the way, managed by a centralized company, because you don't have the CEO of a decentralized project. That's very difficult for them to understand. Guys, if you want to do a company, that's fine, do a company. If you don't want to do a decentralized project, you don't have a CEO of a decentralized project. Just don't hire a CEO. It's stupid that there is a CEO of Golem. Golem is supposed to be a decentralized project. Otherwise, you just create a centralized company with a centralized server, which is usually the best solution.
Right. So a bit, again, back to decentralization and centralization on their Crunchbase, but also on their website and Medium, they again call, okay, so specifically the bio is Airbnb for computers, rent your unused CPU, GPU cycles and get paid in cryptocurrency, a decentralized network powering true cloud computing. Tone, really?
Yeah, it gets out of control real quickly. Like, again, I'm just like going through this article and I'm trying to pick out some gems. Like this is one of my favorite quotes. So here's the part of the article. I don't know if you have it highlighted, Leah, because I have it like I've kind of copied and pasted it out. And this current release, Golem Brass Beta, is an effort to test whether the technology functions in real market conditions with real money. We have to see how it behaves in the wild. So they have $350 million, and now they have to figure out how it actually functions in the wild. This is exactly what TheDAO did. Yeah, it's you know, like it's $300 million. Let's see how it functions in the wild. And 150 of it immediately disappeared. Here's my next favorite part. I'm just gonna read this one out. The providers, I'm not sure where it is. There it is, the provider. So it's like, yeah, perfect. So I'll let you read those, Leah. So read those two paragraphs and then Skip will,
Yep, these are fun. The providers are given small tasks or subtasks, which when pieced together create a full computational picture. Quote, we send those subtasks over a peer-to-peer network where peers compute them, return the results for you, and connect that into one piece and pay for the use of the other people's computers. What?
Well, that's not the worst part. So if you scroll down to the following section where it says, and what the team behind Golem found was that their aim of splitting computational tasks up into smaller tasks and then reintegrated them is an uphill battle. So basically, these guys, okay, hey, we have a task. Let's split it up into multiple tasks for no reason whatsoever, and then we're just going to combine them back in, and people get to print their own money. And they're realizing that combining them back in is a little difficult. It's kind of like, you know, if you cut up a piece of paper and then want to put it back together, it's a little bit tricky. This is their plan. This is their grand business model, to subdivide something stupid into subtasks and then put it back together for no reason whatsoever. This is where your money's going, guys. $350 million you've invested into this. Amazing, right?
Jimmy, is there any current competitors, do you think, or will there be that could?
Well,
yep.
Well, so I don't really understand how they would work. So say you got, you know, some task, right? Like say I'm on the Golem network and I got some task to utilize my CPU. Like I can just submit that I did it. How are they gonna know any different? Like I'm not sure how you can prove that your CPU cycles were actually used. This, you know, unless it's like an asymmetric problem, kind of like proof of work or something like that, in which case you can give back an answer. But that's a very small class of problems that are utilized for, you know, CPU computing. So I don't know, the whole I think Giacomo, like you know, laid out like the 5 reasons why it won't work at all. I'm wondering what, like, if you hold a Golem token, what the hell are you entitled to? What do you get? Like some CPU power from somebody, some answer from somewhere. And, you know, I mean, I played with MapReduce and stuff like that, where, you know, you have distributed computing, you give small tasks, and then like reintegrating them, the part that Tone talked about, that's not trivial. That's hard. To break up a task into multiple smaller tasks and then like reduce them back to something that you can utilize, that's not easy either. And that's why they're probably calling it an uphill battle, because every task has to be made into a MapReduce. That's not easy. And for any sort of consumer of this sort of network of CPU stuff, it doesn't really make sense to me that you get anything useful. If you were going to do that, I think Giacomo said before, like you would just go rent AWS, probably a lot cheaper. And instead of like using people's computers that are on different hardware, you have no idea whether or not they ran the stupid stuff that you asked them to do. And you know, you have to, like, I guess, consume Golem tokens or something like that. I can't imagine this thing working in any way that, like, I mean, people are more or less speculating. That's I can't see it being anything else.
Giacomo, on Jimmy's point of this regarding adoption, so I pulled up the Medium article, their Medium article about the release. And to be honest, I was quite confused about the installation process that they are telling you to do. And Jimmy's correct, you have to use Ether. So I don't personally understand how they're going to have the amount of users testing this out for them to get even an accurate or somewhat useful data back, qualitative or quantitatively, that they can even, again, try to make this a real thing.
I mean, Leah, I think you are asking a lot. You are asking to Golem to be the first Ethereum-based application to ever being actually used by somebody to do something at all. I think that this is too much on that. The Golem token is an ERC token that will be exchanged and sold and bought for speculation as any other token for any other decentralized application, and that's just the market standard. If they really want to go beyond the actual market standard and actually have some people using the decentralized application, I think we would be in an entirely new realm of an unexplored realm. And I think that there, your question would be relevant.
That makes sense. Jimmy, are they then closing out, literally reinventing the wheel?
Well, I don't know if they're reinventing anything. They're trying to invent something that really is just doesn't really make sense, right? Like they're trying to make something decentralized, but have some centralized control. And I don't know, like just like looking at their code base and stuff like that, they're using like SQLite to like store a lot of the data. I don't know how much data they're expecting, but everyone knows SQLite is not going to scale very well after a certain point. Just there are all sorts of red flags that I'm seeing in their repo. I just don't get it. I don't know.
Tone, do you have a response?
Yeah. They're literally trying to create a decentralized wooden wheel. So you take a current wheel, you break it up into a bunch of little parts, and then you try in a decentralized way to put it back together. And the wheel that they're using is an open source software called Blender. I really wonder what the hell Blender thinks about this, right? So they built this, you can click on the Blender link, it'll take you to the Blender link will take you to the, I think it's a Wikipedia page. It's literally like open source software for 3D animation. So they're just using somebody else's open source software, and they're like, hey, you know what? these guys build a really good 3D software. You know what's a good idea? Let's break it up into little tasks. Let's waste people's computing power on something we don't really know, and then we're going to try to piece it back together, and then somehow magic, everybody makes money. This could be one of the, I mean, this might be the dumbest project I have ever seen in my life. And I've seen some stupid projects. This is really, really amazing. Those are pretty much my final thoughts on this disaster.
But just another very quick comment, if I may. Actually, I totally agree with Tone and Jimmy. One little thing that I could add is that if the project as a whole made any sense, which it doesn't, it would not be a bad idea to reuse an existing and well-performing open source layer in order to do something. You know, usually in this ICO or token sale or altcoin context, they want to reinvent everything. Like Ethereum, for example, Ethereum is a bad idea per se. But on top of the bad idea per se, building a new Ethereum virtual machine, which is something new, exotic, untested, not peer-reviewed, unpredictable, is way worse than the alternative idea of creating your ICO and using, I don't know, Moxie, virtual machine or something existing instead of recreating. But of course, when you recreate, you can push that kind of milestone inside your ICO roadmap, so it appears externally that you did more work. So I don't think that, I mean, if Blender is open source, they are expecting any kind of use or abuse or stupid use of the platform. So the problem is not that they are reusing an existing code, but is that it doesn't make any sense the way they're doing that.
Jimmy, what happens if you try to troubleshoot?
Yeah, so first of all, look, check it out, usage and troubleshooting. Yeah, little spelling mistake there. Documentation for using the app. You have this complicated installing and testing script, and then the most common problems are described in section 10. And you click through to section 10, and what happens? You get a 404 not found. Actually, can you go back and try that first link? I actually haven't tried that first link, docs.golem.network.
Yes.
I guess that, I mean, I think it's supposed to be there, but, and I think you can, I don't know, like the whole thing needs an update. Come on, guys. Like, you guys know, if you're doing a freaking launch and your links don't work.
Jimmy, give them a break. They only got $350 million.
Oh God, I like if I were a software developer on this project, I'd be just so embarrassed at little mistakes like that. Like it just like bothers the hell out of me when like stupid little things like that just aren't there. I mean, and usually if there's one cockroach, there's lots. So I mean, not to. Usually, if there's like a bug in the documentation, there's bugs in lots of other things. So I wouldn't trust it with anything. But anyway, let's go back to the mempool, Leah.
Well, and also, right, with the price dropping with Ether, maybe they're just freaked out, hodling, and not spending on their project, it seems. So I guess we'll see. Just kidding. Yeah. All right, Jimmy.
Yeah. So I mean, something always happens at 8 a.m. I don't know what it is, but you can see that giant spike there. Somebody does a bunch of stuff every morning at 8 a.m. And then it goes up, and then it takes a little time for it to clear, but it does clear. If you wanted to get in a transaction today, you could probably do 1 or 2 Satoshi per byte. Anything faster, you could probably do like 10, and you'll definitely get it. So that's my weather report, I guess. Great.
Thank you, Jimmy. Giacomo, do you want to make any comments about Lightning before we move to price?
No, I don't. I think the metrics are good, but still nothing game-changing in the number of nodes or channel of the number of Bitcoin holding in channels. So one comment that we have to do is that Eclair app was honestly retired from the App Store because they lost the signing key. And so we will have to wait some days to have it back again. But that's just a minor problem.
Who lost the signing key? What?
Yeah, that's they behaved in a responsible way in exposing that very, even if it's very embarrassing, they exposed that very soon. Eclair, a sync team, they've lost their signing key, and instead of just I don't know, trying to downplay it, they retired immediately the app from the App Store, and they declared it on Twitter. So yeah, it's a fuck up, but at least the reaction was very professional, I have to say.
All right, thank you. Tone, on to price?
Yes, let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with the price. All right, I wonder if, let me get that out of the way there. Okay, so, oh man, I have all this stuff. Okay, here we go. So the weekly chart remains, we're getting a very tight candle with the number 5 on it. This is good. This is how you want this week to end. You want this week to be the least volatile week in the downtrend. This is exactly what you want. You see, the current week with a 5 on it is the complete opposite of the prior week that had a 5 on it. This is exactly what you want from the current week. You want this week to finish in the middle of last week's candle, between last week's high and low. Today's Wednesday, so we're almost halfway through the week. Let's see if we can hold this $6,500 to $7,000 area. And then next week, there should be some clarity as to what to expect going into like May and June. So far, the 50-week moving average is holding us up. So I am fairly happy right now with the current progress. Let me slide this thing over. Now, here's the daily chart. The daily chart is not all that encouraging to me. We continue to have lower highs and lower lows. Now, let's see what happens the rest of the day and tomorrow. But even if we go up, higher than 7,200, we still have to get all the way above 7,500 to have any kind of bullish inclination. So as long as we're staying within the confines of last week's highs and lows, then you can see it right here. Last week's high, 7,500. Last week's low is probably here at 6,500. So as long as we stay between 6,500 and 7,500, there's absolutely no clarity in the market. And the overall trend remains in a bearish posture. So I am looking for continued lower prices. But it's good that there is some stability right now. Let's go straight to the 12-hour chart. The 12-hour chart continues to potentially make this triangle. So that means if we go up into the area of 7,100, I would be expecting it to come back down and test 6,700 again. If this triangle continues to build all the way into the middle of April, this could end pretty badly with a swift $1,000 drop down to 5,500. So definitely keep an eye on this triangle. I believe on 12 hours, it looks, like optimally to draw it. Here's the 4-hour chart. You can probably draw it on a 4-hour chart as well. I just find it a little cleaner on the 12-hour. So the 4-hour chart is coming up on an 8. So the 4-hour chart could be toppy right here for a potential reversal. So again, all signs point to the $7,000 or $7,100 area before it turns back down. I can glance at the 1-hour chart, so I'm not expecting much from it. Here is the 1-hour chart, and like I said, there's really not much there. So that's pretty much it for me. A glance at the S&P 500 looks like that one is stabilizing. If the S&P can get back above 2760, I think we're fully back in the clear, and the worst of this, war, the trade war is pretty much over from a financial perspective. And gold is pushing closer to my very critical $1,400 breakout. Now, let's see what happens. I'll keep an eye on traditional markets. I know I owe people a traditional markets video. That's pretty much it for me. I'm going to go ahead and stop screen share. I know it's a little loud by me, but I'm off to Austin later tonight. And those that are interested in my trading seminar, it's going to be in Austin, Jimmy's backyard over there. And I'll be over there. As of tomorrow morning, I'll be in Austin, and Saturday is my trading seminar. So email, or you'll figure it out. You guys are, if you can't figure out how to sign up for my seminar, you probably don't belong in the trading space. All right. So good luck, guys. I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you everybody for watching and for letting us all wear hats. Maybe we're actually all having bad hair days, but we'll see. Oh, there we go. And hopefully, Tone, maybe Jimmy will lend you a cowboy hat, and we'll see how you do in Austin. You can listen to this later on iTunes.
That'd be great. I would love to bring home a cowboy hat.
Dude, now you put some pressure. All right, we'll see.
And alligator boots. You can listen to this later on iTunes. Thanks to the World Crypto Network. Thank you guys. And Giacomo, also cowboy hat, maybe?
I have one, black. I just have to put a Bitcoin logo on top of it, but I have one in Milan.
Well, maybe that'll be the next one. Thank you, everybody.
Wait. Are we done?
Nope.
Almost.
Okay, all right, we're still
Jimmy.
live. I want to promote my show that I'm doing later today with Liz Stark and John Pfeffer, where we're gonna announce some stuff about the San Francisco seminar I'm doing next week, and the New York seminar that I'm doing next month. So it'll be fun. Stay tuned. We're gonna talk about developers and the ecosystem and how we can get more of them into it.
Yeah, hey Jimmy, when you were in San Francisco, I started playing this game by interviewing like a bunch of people playing this game called Homeless or Millionaire. I think it's like San Francisco is like the perfect place to play that game. we gotta have like a show on the street where we interview people about their projects, and then the community has to figure out, is this person homeless or is he a millionaire?
Oh, dude. Do you want to blow people's minds or not? Yeah, we'll talk about it.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching, and see you all tomorrow morning.
And this song is done.